Well, it looks clear on here. Yes, please. That's a good idea. The groups also set up. It's amazing how he gets the other TV as well. Isn't it? How people already watch. Huh? There's only 3 people. How do you know that? Oh yeah. I know. Waiting for that to start. Okay, so it's working. Yeah? Waiting for that. Okay, so it's working. Yeah? There's a little delay, isn't it? Okay. For those of you who joined slightly early, I'm just setting myself up. So please forgive me for any embarrassing things. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll switch that off. You can put it on the kitchen. You can put it on the kitchen. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday feast program, albeit in lockdown. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to give class. And even though it's pretty strange that I won't get any feedback, um, please send some live chat if I'm unclear, or if I'm saying something that's unclear, then please give me a message. That will be great. So we'll start with Jay Radhamadhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhaja Jananandana Yashodanandana Bhaja Jananandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhaja Jananandana Yashodanandana Bhaja Jananandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jannavalabha Girivardhara Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivardhara Shodanandana Raja Janarandana Yashodanandana Raja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tiravanakari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Namalava Giridhari Jaya Gopi Namalava Giridhari Shodanandana Bhajananandana Yashodanandana Bhajananandana Yamuna Tiravanakari Yamuna Tiravanakari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Giridhari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Giridhari Yashodanandana Bhajananandana Yashodanandana Bhajananandana Yamuna Tiravanakari Yamuna Tiravanakari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yamuna Siravagata Yamuna Siravagata Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna Ki Nisai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So welcome to our Sunday lecture. It is wonderful to have this opportunity to address you. Today, we're going to speak about transformation of consciousness to overcome the chasm of perfecting human form of life. So, transformation of consciousness is very important. Without challenging and actually reflecting on what is the foundation of our beliefs, it is very difficult to actually advance in any morality or spiritual life. So today I'm going to select a number of verses to help to talk about the transformation of consciousness, to try and delve deeper into what we may need to do internally to try and strengthen our spiritual life. So before I start, we'll do the invocation mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyantmandasya Yanjana Shalakya Chakshurimitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pujarine Navasisanyavadi Praskatastaine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gauravakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So sometimes one could say that consciousness is reflected in our culture. And we can see that even around the same country, like the UK, there are cultural differences. And around the world, there are many different types of cultures. And they're founded on some local principles, sometimes religious, sometimes some tradition. And this variegatedness of culture can be a challenge for unity. Because inevitably in the material world, differences give rise to prejudice. So to understand a culture that is not just diverse, but is actually bringing people of different backgrounds together, must have principles which are eternal. So we can understand that where there is a deviation from culture, it normally makes cooperation very difficult. But if people come together with an understanding of a similar culture, even though there may be behavioral differences, but the principles are the same, then there is a foundation for success in unity. So our Vedic scriptures, they speak of a culture and a philosophy and a practice which is eternal. And those eternal principles, they're not changed by time, place, or circumstance. And that provides a great platform for advancement. So in a society where the culture is difficult to maintain because the practice may feel austere, inevitably allows the culture to slide into a very lower consciousness. So we need to understand that our experiences typically they mold our way to think, feel, and act. And so the Vedic scriptures, they are firstly trying to help us to understand what is the foundational position of a human being and how they can live in cooperation with all the many 8,400,000 species of life. So we can see that bringing that kind of unity, bringing that kind of worldly or universal principle is not easy because the educational systems in most cultures have become very much more based on academia. And the principle of human life, yes, is not based on academic knowledge. And academic knowledge is typically utilized to earn an income. And very much today we can see that people are prioritizing earning an income over and above all other considerations. So why is that? We can see that there are people in this world who are on a very low income. And we also know within our own country that those who are on a pension, or a state pension, are also living on very little income. So there is an economic requirement, that is for sure. However, that economic requirement, how big should it be? So in the West, we can see that there's an all-encompassing requirement, yes, to build economic wealth, even to the state that one is saving income for one's old age, which means that most of us, without many exceptions, we are in a situation where our entire energy and time is being absorbed in wealth creation. And even the principles of government have become wealth orientated. And there are many factors, what we call key performance indicators, that the stock market are measuring how each economy around the world is performing in terms of its wealth. But is that really the measure of an advanced society? So let's explore the need for challenging the consciousness or uplifting the consciousness from a spiritual perspective through the Srimad Bhagavatam. So today I'm going to focus on a few verses around around the 10th canto and the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'd like to start by first talking about that the essential requirement of human form of life. So there are 8,400,000 species of living entities, of which 400,000 are considered to be of human form or higher. And it is very rare to get human form of life. It is described in the various scriptures that the rareness of human birth is like a turtle sitting on the bottom of the ocean and aiming to rise to the top of the ocean, to the surface, where there is a plank of wood with a hole in it, and putting its head through that hole. So when we are in this world, yes, and we see so many human beings, we sometimes take it for granted how rare that is. But it's so, so rare. And if one loses one's human life, then the other 8 million species will take millions and millions and millions and billions of lives to actually get another opportunity to become a human being. So let us understand what Nanda Maharaj considers about the importance of human life. He, yes, whilst Krishna, so this is during the time when Krishna has been born or appeared, when Krishna appears, and Vasudeva takes him across to Nanda Maharaj's home. And there, a few days later, Gag Muni comes to do the purificatory samskar. So if you can, then the 10th canto, chapter 8, verse text 10, the translation is, Nanda Maharaj said, "My dear great sage, if you think your performing this process of purification will make Kamsa suspicious, then secretly chant the Vedic hymns and perform the purifying process of second birth here in the cowshed of my house, without the knowledge of anyone else, even my relatives, for this process of purification is essential." So Gag Muni, to just put some context behind this, Gag Muni has come to the home of Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj is very excited to do the ceremony, the naming ceremony and the purificatory ceremony of second birth or Brahmin thread ceremony. And Gag Muni is indicating to Nanda Maharaj that Kamsa, if he hears that this ceremony is taking place in your home or in your village, then he'll become very suspicious and endanger the lives of Krishna and Balaram. So there's a conversation going on. And Nanda Maharaj, he doesn't really want to give up the idea of not doing the ceremony. So he then asks that let's do it in incognito. So if we read the purport by Srila Prabhupada, it is very revealing. Nanda Maharaj did not like the idea of avoiding the purificatory process. Despite the many obstacles, he wanted to take advantage of Gag Muni's presence and do what was needed. The purificatory process is essential specifically for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. Therefore, Nanda Maharaj presented himself as a Vaishya. This process of purification was essential. Formerly, such institutional activity were compulsory. Without these activities of purification, the society would be considered a society of animals. To take advantage of Gag Muni's presence, Nanda Maharaj wanted to perform the Namgarana ceremonies, even secretly, without any gorgeous arrangement. Therefore, the opportunity for purification should be regarded as the essential duty of human society. In Kali Yuga, however, people have forgotten the essence. In this age, people are all bad and unfortunate, and they do not accept Vedic instructions to make their life successful. Nanda Maharaj, however, did not want to neglect anything. To keep intact a happy society advanced in spiritual knowledge, he took full advantage of Gag Muni's presence to do what was necessary. How degraded society has become within 5,000 years. The human life is obtained after many, many millions of births, and it is intended for purification. Previously, a father was eager to give all kinds of help to elevate his children, but at present, because of being misguided, people are prepared even to kill to avoid the responsibility of raising children. Shalubadaki Jai. So, the purificatory process is an essential requirement for human beings because the soul is eternal. So we understand from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 12. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So we can understand from the Bhagavad Gita that the soul is eternal. And if the soul is eternal, why is it in this material world on a very temporary basis due to its body? So the body and the soul are separate, and the body is given to the living entity as a means to enjoy its desires. But it's unnatural for the soul because the soul is eternal, full of knowledge, and blissful, Sat Chit Ananda. And subsequently, it is bewildered by the change of body. So, the purification process, it allows one to, with time, to purify one's existence so that birth, death, old age, and disease can be removed completely and become eternally as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, if we don't keep this in mind, that actually this is our priority in our lives, that we find the opportunity to get purified. Now, in the age of Kali, yes, it is very difficult, yes, to find purificatory processes because literally there is no academic or any government or any schools or colleges or any professors who are propagating this understanding that the human form of life must be to remove birth, death, old age, and disease, to actually stop birth, death, old age, and disease. So, without that cultural base, we are not reminded regularly that really that is our priority. So, subsequently, Srila Prabhupada, he has come to the West and he has given us a sublime process to try and reform our hearts and minds. But why are we trapped in this body? A very wonderful question. So in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 3, the subject is liberation from the illusionary energy. So we know from Bhagavad Gita 7:14 that the material world is very difficult to overcome unless one surrenders to Krishna. So let us read from the 11th canto, and I'm going to read the translation and some parts of the purport from from 11th canto, 3rd chapter, verse 20. One cannot find permanent happiness even on the heavenly planets, which one can attain in the next life by ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices. Even in the material heaven, the living entity is disturbed by rivalry with his equals and envy of those superior to him. And since one's residence in heaven is finished with the exhaustion of pious fruitive activities, the denizens of heaven are afflicted by fear, anticipating the destruction of their heavenly life. Thus, they resemble kings who, through enviously, yet admired by ordinary citizens, are constantly harassed by enemy kings, and who therefore never attain actual happiness. So some highlights from the purport by Srila Prabhupada. So these are some quotes from Srila Sridhara Swami. One's present status of material pleasure, the result of one's previous work, will eventually be vanquished by time. Similarly, although by executing pious activities, one will be elevated to a higher status in the next life, that future situation will also be vanquished. The basics of material enjoyment is that the particular body one acquires must be vanquished. If one is awarded a body decorated with beauty, education, popularity, strength, and so on, his standard of material enjoyment is certainly high class. On the other hand, if one is ugly, mentally retarded, crippled, or repulsive to others, there is very little hope for his material happiness. In both cases, however, the situation is flickering and temporary. One who has acquired an attractive body should not rejoice, since death will quickly bring an end to such an intoxicating situation. Similarly, one who has taken birth in an obnoxious situation should not lament, since his suffering is also temporary. The beautiful man and the ugly man, the rich and the poor, the educated and the foolish, should all endeavor to become Krishna conscious, so that they can elevate to the eternal constitutional situation, which is to reside in the planets beyond this material universe. Originally, every living entity is unimaginably beautiful, intelligent, wealthy, and so strong. That his spiritual body lives forever. But we foolishly give up this eternal blissful situation because we are unwilling to meet the conditions for eternal life. The condition is that one should be a lover of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Although love of Krishna is the most exquisite ecstasy, surpassing by millions of times the most intense pleasure of the material universe, we foolishly break off our loving affair with the Supreme Lord and artificially try to become independent enjoyers in the material atmosphere of self-delusion and false pride. And it's quite interesting that in life, whether material or spiritually, one has to take a number of austerities or sacrifices. So if you want to become a top class athlete, if you want to become a professor of any type of education, if you wish to become a mother, and have some good children, or you want to become a parent and have some good children. If you want to become educated, yeah, there are exams, and that requires sacrifice and austerity. Everything that we want to achieve in this world requires some sacrifice. And for an intelligent person, the sacrifice should be proportional to the reward. So this raises a very interesting question. That we work so hard, make so many sacrifices. For instance, the doctors, they're spending something like 7 years in education and then so many years in practicing medicine. And then at some point in their 40s, they will start to get some rewards. And then, yes, by the time we're into the 60s, old age has already appeared. So we have to understand that the amount of sacrifice that we provide to actually achieve so little in this world is incredible. In spiritual life, the sacrifices that one makes to make advancement, they are eternal. So a transformation of consciousness is to really understand this foundational understanding. That is, that I'm making so many sacrifices anyway, regardless of what the rewards may or may not be. Then why not make a sacrifice for something where the result is eternal? If we do not ponder on the way that we utilize our time, then certainly this human life will be wasted. So I'm going to speak another sentence. To acquire wealth in this world, one is practically forced to become the killer of his own soul. So what does Prabhupada mean by that? It means that it absorbs so much time and energy, and the desire to actually accumulate wealth is to engage in sense gratification. And when one engages in sense gratification, then one is trapped by the alluring illusionary energy that makes us think that we're this body. And it's quite interesting today that we're so much engaged in sense enjoyment, and that is the overall priority in the way that we decide how to utilize our time for wealth generation. So the more desires that we have to accomplish, the more piety we must have performed in our previous life, and the more exhausting work we must engage in to actually achieve that wealth for enjoyment. So it is so easy for the days to go by, for the weeks to go by, for the months to go by, for the years to go by, that many of us, even myself, I'm now 53, and I have to say that my lifetime appears to have gone in a flash. Even 53 years, what to speak of my children who are teenagers today. And so many things, change on the path of economic development. We may start off with so many desires to do so many things, but there are many other factors that come into play. Old age, disease, means that the body is steadily losing its potency. And here's a very interesting fact, that many of us, we may be saving for our old age to enjoy, but actually the senses, they become old. So to spend money for sense enjoyment in old age is a futile waste of time, because the senses no longer can provide the enjoyment they once did in our teenagers. So what are the challenges? What are the challenges? Yes, in the purificatory process. That even if one has taken up devotional service, yes, one needs to be focused on the end goal. So I'm going to share with you some wonderful categories of sinful life according to Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, which was very nicely spoken by Gurung Prabhu in one of his classes. So it is said that sinful life, yes, is unlimited, and there are 11 categories, yes, that sinful life falls into. And these 11 categories are violence, cruelty, hypocrisy, mental illusion, lying, telling lies either verbally, in terms of cheating religions, cheating conduct, prejudice, or supporting unjust parties. 6, disrespect. 7, lust for money, lust for women, lust for position. Selfishness, impurities of the body, mind, place, time, objects. 10, our conduct towards the saintly, and our conduct towards helping others to lift up their lives. And destructive actions that oppose good work, false renunciation, preaching irreligion in the name of God, unjust wars, wasting time, money, material resources. So as you can see there, the list is huge. And there are so many purificatory processes, especially enunciated in the Vedas. So it is important that if we have a very limited lifespan, that we try and be very, very intelligent. It is explained that there are many routes to London from Manchester. However, the motorway is the quickest, especially if there's no traffic, because sometimes there's traffic. Now, one could get to London through all the different towns and cities, but on the path, there will be so many distractions. So similarly, in Vedic knowledge, there are many paths that one can take for purificative process of human form of life. And then birth after birth, one can actually achieve the final goal of life. However, we learn in the 11th canto that, and so many classes have been given on this, that bhakti, it gives us a very unique opportunity and a fast track program to purify our lives in this lifetime. So, in that regard, I'd like to read another verse from the 11th canto, chapter 3. Sorry, I'll be with you in a second, just trying to find the verse. Okay, sorry, found it. So in chapter, sorry, in the 11th canto, chapter 3, verse 29 to 31, there are some very beautiful verses. Actually, and these verses, they glorify the position of bhakti. So hopefully I'll get there very soon. So one who desires his ultimate self-interest should cultivate friendship with those persons who have accepted Krishna as the Lord of their life. One should further develop an attitude of service towards all living beings. One should especially try to help those in the human form of life, and amongst them, especially those who accept the principles of religious behavior. Amongst religious persons, one should especially render service to the pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The next verse it says, one should learn how to associate with the devotees of the Lord by gathering with them to chant the glories of the Lord. This process is most purifying, as devotees thus develop their loving friendship. They feel mutual happiness and satisfaction, and by thus encouraging one another, they're able to give up material sense gratification, which is the cause of all suffering. So we have many classes each week, and a lot of times what these classes are focused on understanding the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, because it is said that simply by understanding these pastimes, one's heart is purified. And here it is encouraging us that if such pastimes are heard in the association of devotees, then the purification process is even faster. So the verse I want to speak about is is number 31, the next verse. The devotees of the Lord constantly discuss the glories of the personality of Godhead amongst themselves. Thus, they constantly remember the Lord and remind one another of his qualities and pastimes. In this way, by their devotion to the principles of bhakti yoga, the devotee pleases the personality of Godhead, who takes away from them everything inauspicious. Being purified of all impediments, the devotees awaken to pure love of Godhead, and thus, even within this world, their spiritualized bodies exhibit symptoms of transcendental ecstasy, such as standing of the bodily hairs on end. So I'll read that again. The devotees of the Lord constantly discuss the glories of the personality of Godhead amongst themselves. Thus, they constantly remember the Lord and remind one another of his qualities and pastimes. In this way, by their devotion to the principles of bhakti yoga, the devotees please the personality of Godhead, who takes away from them everything inauspicious. Being purified of all impediments, the devotees awaken to pure love of Godhead, and thus, even within this world, their spiritualized bodies exhibit symptoms of transcendental ecstasy, such as standing of the bodily hairs on end. So we can understand here that the search for permanent happiness, yes, can be achieved by bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga means that one dovetails all one's activities as an offering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the best example that we give is, for instance, we all love food, and therefore that food that is offered to the Supreme Lord is called prasadam. And by eating that prasadam, yes, automatically we are pleased because the taste is fantastic, and the Lord is pleased because you've offered what you have to Him. So in this same way, there is nothing that we have that we cannot offer to the Lord in terms of our home, children, ourselves, our education, our results of our hard labor. But if that is followed up with making relationships with those devotees who are convinced that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the opportunities for purity are even higher. So I'm going to read some more of the purport. The word agoharam is very significant in this verse. Aga refers to that which is inauspicious or sinful. The living entity is actually Sit Ananda Vigraha, or eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. But by neglecting his eternal relationship with Krishna, the personality of Godhead, he commits sinful activities and undergoes the inauspicious results in the form of material suffering. The chain of sinful reactions is called ogha, or a relentless wave of suffering. Krishna is agahoha harim. He takes away the sinful reactions of his devotees, who are thus entitled to experience the inconceivable bliss of the kingdom of God, even while remaining in this world. The words bhaktya, sanjataya, bhaktya indicate that there are two divisions of bhakti yoga, sadhana bhakti and raganuga bhakti. Srila Prabhupada has elaborately explained in his book, Nectar of Devotion, the progress of devotees from sadhana bhakti, or the execution of regulative principles, or raganuga bhakti, or service executed in love of Godhead. According to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a liberated soul is always enthusiastic due to the appearance of transcendental ecstasy within his body. Thus, he always aspires to remain overwhelmed in chanting the glories of the personality of Godhead, Hari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, as devotees, it is essential that we cultivate some intense loving feelings for the devotees and continue to discuss the wonderful pastimes of the Supreme Lord, and thereby doing so, the opportunity to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna is practically possible. There are so many distractions. So it is explained that Bharat Maharaj, that he was on the platform above, but because of the lack of association, he was distracted by a deer and took birth as a deer in his next life. So these distractions can be mitigated, yes, by the strong and loving relationships with devotees. Because ultimately, wherever we want to be successful within this life, we have to associate with that type of being. If I want to become a businessman, I need to associate with businessmen. If I want to become a great tailor, then I have to spend time with tailors. If I want to become an athlete, then I have to spend time training with athletes. So according to what I associate with, I become. And here we can hear that simply by doing something which we all enjoy, associating with the devotees, cultivating some loving relationships, and discussing Krishna pastimes or Krishna Katha will allow us to make that transformation of consciousness that makes perfecting our lives within this lifetimes a real opportunity. And so I would encourage all of you that you try and take more time out to make these relationships with the devotees, that you try and make some, that you actually discuss in detail, what the philosophy is, what the pastimes mean, how they affect our lives, how we can become more attached to our eternal principle of life, which is to become a servant, a loving servant of the Supreme Lord. It is a journey like anything in life. If we say that approximately to make our careers, it takes us probably something like 20 years, and the education process takes us probably another 10-15 years. So just to get some material happiness, we have made so much investment, and yet it's very temporary, that when this body deceases, so will all those achievements. So please try and take this time of lockdown to make some introspection, to try and see that my consciousness, it needs to be transformed. The typical nature of conditioning is that we continue to do what we're used to. I'll repeat that. The actual meaning of conditioned life means that we continue to do what we're used to. Prabhupada, he terms the phrase chewing the chewed. That we daily, we just repeat what we've done in the previous days, months, years. So scientists explain that the nature of the mind, or the nature of the brain, is that there are tracks that are made, or connections. And those connections are made by repetition. So if we continue to keep on repeating the same activities, it becomes a habit. In the case of material life, those material habits, they actually take us away from the principle of happiness. Whereas the repetition of activities in spiritual life, they actually give liberation. They give the real opportunity of freedom. Because, see, freedom, it comes to those who are obedient. So, for instance, those of us who are following this lockdown, there is safety in abiding by that requirement. And those who break those rules, yes, suffering will come. So similarly, the law of the country, those who are following the laws nicely, they're not in fear of seeing the police, because they're good citizens. And what do they have to fear? So similarly, those who are devotees, they are following the rules and regulations of God. And because they're following those rules and regulations of God, their freedom is unlimited. Yes, rules and regulations are there to control those who want to break the laws. So even though today we very much talk about independence, independent thinking without being approved by a authority, a high authority, yeah, actually means that it's an excuse to whimsically do as we please. So any great knowledge, yeah, requires an authority. Just like our children at the moment are following the authority of the government in order to achieve their GCSEs, A levels, or university degrees. Or in a company, we follow rules and regulations of the directors. Yeah. It actually allows there to be trust, and from that trust, so much service can be achieved. And by doing that service nicely, one gets affection from those who become your authorities, or your managers, or your parents. So similarly, yes, when we associate with the devotees, our hearts and minds are always focusing on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and what pleases Him. And because we are by nature, when two children come together and they discuss the topic of the parents and they're glorifying the parents, then the parents are naturally very, very pleased. So the Supreme Lord, He's always very pleased with His devotees because they're utilizing their time, yes, to do His service. And of that, the greatest service is to help others understand how much the Lord misses them and how they should reconnect back to the Supreme Lord and actually make their lives permanent and extremely blissful. Now, this brings me to the end of my class. I would like to give a summary. So here's 5 points to consider as a summary of the class. A transcendental happiness is the only means of permanent satisfaction. We should give it our highest priority. The practice of bhakti yoga guarantees transcendental happiness by the chanting of the holy names and by remembering the pastimes of the Supreme Lord and discussing those pastimes. The norms of material life only steal our valuable time and ultimately deliver very little. There are no success stories, yes, of those in material life who actually find ultimate happiness. The highest goal of serving others is to free them from all fear. It was very nice that Dayananda Maharaj, he gave the class on the 9 fears, of which birth, death, old age, disease are part of that. So if we love people, we want them to be free from anxiety and fear, then we can serve them to understand this great principle of Krishna consciousness. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, through devotee association and building relationships, it provides the fast-track program to transcendental perfection, which will take us back home, back to Godhead, and in this lifetime, actually taste the ecstatic nectar. I hope you have enjoyed the lecture. Sorry for the pauses and learning how to speak without an audience that you can interact with. But thank you for thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your time. And if any of you wish to discuss anything further, then I'm available on WhatsApp. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much indeed.